Hey guys, this is the Academic Christian, also known as Chandler King, where on this channel we look at things from a biblical perspective, a research-based perspective, and a scientific perspective. It's been a while, just quick update for those who have followed this channel in the past. I've just been busy with my grad school work, so I just haven't been able to do this kind of work in a while. Hopefully, this coming up semester, my last semester in my master's degree program, I will have more availability to do these kinds of videos. But I'm excited to come back, and I'm going to start off the new year, or really the end of the year, with a video of a common question that you get from people who are non-believers and believers alike. And so this question is I might do a series, I don't know, but this is one of the common misunderstood questions that people get, people who don't believe give to people who are believers. And what I found is usually there is not that great of an answer. A lot of Christians do not give that good of an answer to people who don't believe, and because of that, more people are going to the side where they don't believe. And I seem to notice this from watching YouTube videos about this, so I decided that it's time for me to make a YouTube video about this myself and to give an answer that I think is better for people who are Christians, and hopefully it'll shed some light to people who don't believe in God. So, if you've ever heard of the story dealing with if you've ever read the book of Joshua, and you've ever read about the fall of Jericho, and a lot of these, if you read Joshua, the book in general, this was the hardest book that there was for me to read as someone who was a believer. It made me question God. It made me do all these different things because I'm like, how could a God kill every man, woman, and child in a civilization? And a lot of this made me continue to search for answers. I'm like, was he really this ruthless? Was he really this, is this a religion I would want to follow? So basically, I put a scripture there is just a reference point, and it's Joshua 6:17 for those who might want to look it up. I use the NIV Bible just because it was the Bible I was baptized with. I don't see that as like a preferred translation. It's just the Bible that I keep around. But basically, it's saying that in the scripture that they were going to kill everyone in the city except Rahab the prostitute who spared the Lord's men. And I'm going to give this point over to the next slide. And this is really just to show, it did mention in the Bible that in certain situations that they had people killed, every man, woman, and child. And so this video is going to be like to answer, why was it like this? Why did God do this? For us to properly look at this, I put two scriptures from the same chapter, and I spread it out because I believe that I don't want the video to sit here and be way too long. So we're going to look at a tribe that in the Bible, God commanded Saul to kill all of them. Saul didn't kill all of them, and we're going to see what the repercussions were. So if you read 1 Samuel 15:2-3, it says, "This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites." I'm probably butchering that, but you're just going to have to bear with me. "For what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt. Now go, attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belong to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys." Now a lot of people are like, okay, this is very harsh. If they had to end up fighting, why kill the children? I hear people answer like, oh, okay, well, it was because people idol worshipped, a lot of the tribes that God had them kill. and they killed every man, woman, and child. And a lot of the times when I was looking up that, and I was like, well, why the children? Like, okay, if they were sacrificing babies and stuff to this, why harm the children? Because the children are innocent in this. It's one of those things I sat there and thought until I finally found the answer. Let's look. You're going to see the scripture where Saul ends up sparing some people. And it ends up biting Israel in the backside a little bit later. Then Saul attacked the Amalekites all the way from Helava to Shur, near the eastern border of Egypt. He took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and all his people he totally destroyed with the sword. But Saul and the army spared Agag and the best of the sheep and cattle, the fat calves and lambs, everything that was good. These they were unwilling to destroy completely, but everything that was despised and weak they totally destroyed. If you notice in this scripture, he spares the king. He spares some people. Most of the people he destroyed, but he spared some people. And what's very interesting about this is you're going to see what happens just even a little bit later. King David has to deal with them again because of this. They didn't put everyone down. So the font's a little bit smaller in this, but I tried to decorate the slide a little bit better. So we're going to see what happens when they spared a tribe. So it said David and his men reached out to Ziklag on the third day. Now the Amalekites has raided the Negev and Ziklag. They attacked Ziklag and burned it and had taken captive the women and everyone else in it, both young and old. They killed none of them, but carried them off as they went on their way. They ended up having to, well, I just put a note. This isn't the scripture. I was moving down to the other one. But they ended up having to fight them again. They had a raiding party sack a couple of their cities. And a lot of people may be like, okay, big deal. They did this. They sacked a city. They were attacked. All this kind of stuff. But you're going to see David ends up having to fight them again. And there's something else that ends up happening too, but I don't want to spoil it. He led, so looking at the next part of the scripture, because I have it separated. So verses 16 through 19, it says, he led David down, and there they were, scattered over the countryside, eating, drinking, and reveling because of the great amount of plunder they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from Judah. David fought them from dusk until evening of the day, and none of them got away except for 400 young men who rode off on camels and fled. David recovered everything the Amalekites had taken away, including his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, young or old, boy or girl, plunder, or anything else they had taken. David brought everything back. So notice from this time, the one time that they didn't kill every man, woman, and child, they ended up coming back. And they ended up coming back with a vengeance, sacking a city. David had to fight them. It wasn't an easy battle. It said that they fought from dusk until evening. So obviously some men on both sides were killed, unnecessary bloodshed. You go on, you notice that the tribe wasn't still all the way wiped out. So people are like, okay, again, what does that have to do with the children? Because this wouldn't have been enough time for the children to have grown up. It wasn't enough time for the children to have grown up and to have tried getting revenge on them. Because that would have been the only way that, okay, you could justify that happening. The story still isn't over. So the final answer, we look in Esther. I'm not going to give the whole story of Esther because I think it's a beautiful book that the audience should read. So it talks about, if you don't know who Haman was the main antagonist of the book. You obviously believe that the Bible is real. Regardless of whether you believe it's real or not, I think it's important to justify that the God of the Bible did not justify genocide. And I'll give you my reason after I read the scripture. So the king, his signet ring from his finger, gave it to Haman, son of Hamutha the Agagite. the enemy of the Jews. Keep the money, the king said to Haman, and do with the people as you please. They, on the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script of each province and in the language of each people all Haman's orders to the king's satrapies. I'm butchering the names, I know. The governor of the various provinces and the nobles of the various people. They were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring. Dispatches were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the day of Adar, and to plunder their goods. For those of you who didn't catch on, they mentioned the king's name all the way back when Saul first battled him. And Agagite, that was from the tribe of the Amalekites, the tribe that Saul spared. And because Saul spared them, David had to fight them. Had to fight that same generation that Saul had to fight. Because David couldn't finish it because they ran off. Later, their children grew up. And this is Haman. I don't know, regardless of whether you believe historical accuracy of the Bible, based off of biblical standpoints, Haman came from this tribe, and Haman wanted to kill all of them. And he almost succeeded. So my answer to, did God promote genocide? No. I can't give an answer to exactly why God was that ruthless in the Old Testament, except for the scriptures I've provided. The scriptures I've provided show that the time that they didn't destroy everyone was the time that Israel almost got destroyed. So I'm not God. I can't see into the future. I can't see what'll happen. But obviously God can if you believe in God. I believe in God. I'm a Christian. But my thing is that if you look at this, God did this for a reason, and he did it to ensure that the Israelites were saved so that they wouldn't be totally wiped out. Because if they didn't do it, eventually that country would lead children that would eventually do it themselves. This is just a theory. Doesn't mean it's true, but based off of the scriptures that I've provided, it seems like it was very probable. And it's one of those things about, like, if someone like Hitler was alive, would it have been better if someone did? I mean, I'm not going to promote that, but my point is, if he wasn't there, the Jews wouldn't have been in trouble. And I think it's a very valid response. Not only that, people are like, okay, well, what about the Israelites? What was so special about them where they had to be spared? Christ obviously had to come from this line so he could be sacrificed and so that everybody could be saved. So I'm not here with the perfect answer. I'm not. The best I can do is provide you an instance where the people from a tribe were spared, and it almost ensured God's people's destruction. That's it for the video. I want to thank everyone who might be watching, and hopefully it answers some questions. I do think this is something maybe if people, I don't find atheists at fault for asking this question, because I think a lot of Christians just don't know how to answer this question. And when Christians don't know how to answer this question, a lot of times the people who are atheists are going to be like, okay, well, why would I follow this? Now, I do think some people who don't believe do this on purpose just to call people who are Christian dumb. And the sword falls both ways. But regardless, I think it's a justifiable answer that could be easily answered by looking in Scripture. Anyway, thank you all. Hopefully I'm back. and hopefully, we can get this channel growing. I love everyone that's involved. I love the people who do follow the channel. Thank you very much. And, I'm praying for each of y'all.